Something in the outer field has moved, and certain people, the sensitive, the aware, the intuitive outliers, notice first. Not because they're trying to detect anything, but because their system is built to register subtle change the way other people register sound or temperature. If you've been feeling an unnameable tension under your thoughts, an unfamiliar quiet behind your normal rhythm, that's the first sign. You're not imagining it. You're picking up a shift long before the world realizes something has already begun. And this is where most people look away, but you won't, because a part of you already recognizes what I'm about to say. There are moments in your life when something external moves before you do. You don't see it with your eyes and you don't hear it with your ears. You feel it. A pressure, a pull, a thinning of the veil between what you know and what is about to arrive. It starts subtly. A sudden heaviness around people who used to feel light, a strange detachment from routines that once defined you, a sense that you're standing on the edge of something you can't yet name. This is the body's early warning system, the deep intelligence beneath thought, telling you the field around you is shifting its geometry. Not everyone has the sensitivity to register this, but you do. You always have. And you've always wondered why. What you're sensing is not fear or instability, it's recognition. Your awareness is brushing against a pattern forming outside you, a movement that has already begun. And because your perceptual system is built differently, finer, more porous, more attuned to subtle currents, you feel the tremor before it arrives. It shows up as restlessness, as questions you don't know how to form, as a pull towards something you can't yet articulate. Most people misinterpret this as confusion, but confusion is just clarity becoming too large for the old self to hold. And deep down, you've felt this before. You're not learning anything new. You're remembering something ancient in you waking up at the exact moment the field outside you changes direction. Listen closely. That subtle pressure you feel isn't coming from your mind. It's coming from the edge of your timeline, where your next chapter is beginning to generate its contour. When the outer field shifts, the inner field responds. And for people like you, that response is immediate. Your thoughts start to rearrange. Your emotions become louder or quieter without warning. You feel out of sync with things that usually anchor you. This isn't disconnection, it's preparation. It's your system reorienting itself to something you haven't met yet, but are already moving toward. And this is where the paradox enters. The shift isn't happening to you, it's happening because of you. Sensitive people don't detect the field, but they participate in its movement. What you're picking up right now isn't a message from the world. It's an echo from the version of you that already exists in the reality you're walking into. Most people sense their future in hindsight. You sense yours in whispers, in the half-second of stillness before you speak, in the quiet moment where something inside you says, pay attention. So let's pay attention. Notice how time has been feeling different lately. Some days move too quickly, others drag, some disappear entirely. Notice how familiar places have started to feel slightly distorted, as if something has shifted 1 degree to the left. Notice how your intuition has sharpened, how your dreams have intensified, how your sense of self is loosening around the edges. These are threshold sensations. Signs that the world you've known is recalibrating itself around you. You've stepped into an energetic doorway without realizing it, and your awareness is catching the echo of its opening. But this is only the beginning, because once the outer field moves, something inside you begins to awaken in response. The part of you that's been waiting for a moment like this, the part that's always known you are here to navigate transitions others can't see. You've always been slightly ahead of your environment, slightly outside the rhythm everyone else accepts as normal. That's not a flaw. It's your orientation. When the collective field shifts, you're among the first to feel the tremor, not because you're fragile, but because you're wired for evolution. And you're entering a moment where that wiring becomes your greatest advantage. Right now, the world hasn't caught up to what you're sensing. That's why it feels strange. It's why your emotions seem to contradict your circumstances. It's why you're experiencing a low, steady hum of anticipation with no clear source. You're aligning with a new trajectory before it becomes visible. And if you're wondering why your awareness registers things others don't, it's because you've outgrown the timeline you were standing on. Your inner frequency has moved first. The outer field is only now beginning to respond. Something in the outer field has shifted. You're feeling it because you're meant to. And the deeper truth is this: you're not reacting to the change, and you're part of its origin point. You are picking up the signal before the collective recognizes the broadcast. And if you keep listening, you'll understand what this shift is asking of you next. But this is only the first layer, the outer ring of a much deeper movement. And now that you've felt it, the next part of the pattern is ready to reveal itself. When the field around you begins to rearrange itself, it rarely announces the shift through obvious events. It arrives quietly, adjusting the subtleties first. The tone of interactions, the emotional atmosphere in rooms you've always known, the way your inner dialogue suddenly feels like it's been rewritten by a different author. Most people overlook this because they're tuned to the volume of life, not the frequency beneath it. But you're different. You perceive reality not by what it says, but by what it whispers. And right now, those whispers have changed direction. The outer field and the subtle weave that holds your experiences together recalibrates in cycles. These cycles aren't astrological or chronological, they're perceptual. They activate when enough internal pressure has built within your awareness to make the old structure unsustainable. The field doesn't move at random, it moves in response to thresholds inside you, thresholds you've just crossed. And the moment that happens, the external begins to shift its shape around your inner evolution. You felt the pull because the reconfiguration has already begun. You may have noticed it in small ways first. People who once felt aligned suddenly feel distant. Tasks you've done effortlessly begin to feel strangely heavy. Your motivations change without explanation. It's not disinterest, it's incompatibility. When the outer field rearranges, it removes the energetic glue connecting you to what you've outgrown. And because your awareness is built to sense coherence, you feel the unraveling before anything physically changes. Not everyone can feel this stage. Most only recognize the shift in hindsight, when their life has already transformed. But you're sensing it preemptively, the way birds sense incoming weather before the clouds appear. This is where confusion often tries to disguise itself as clarity. You begin to question why you feel disconnected, why certain relationships or desires feel muted, why your old sources of meaning no longer feed you. But look closer. What you're feeling isn't lost, it's preparation. The field is pulling outdated timelines away from your center so that new ones can anchor. You're not breaking apart. You're being reorganized. There is a difference. Breaking scatters, reorganizing aligns, and everything in you right now is aligning towards something your conscious mind hasn't yet translated. If you've felt your emotions shifting rapidly, it's because emotions are the first language of field changes. They move in waves because they are adjusting to a new gravitational center within you. You're not supposed to understand them yet. Understanding comes later, after your system stabilizes. Right now, you're in the phase where the outer field is clearing space you will soon fill with a version of yourself that has been waiting on the periphery of your life. The timing is not accidental. You're stepping into a corridor of transformation that opens only when the internal and external fields sync, and they've just started syncing. There's something else you may have felt. An odd sense of watching your life from a slight distance, as if reality has become two layers and you're standing between them. This is not detachment, it's perception expanding. When the outer field rearranges, your awareness temporarily steps outside its habitual frame so it can perceive the new layout forming. It's like catching a glimpse of the blueprint behind your experience before it's fully built. This sensation doesn't last long, but when it hits, you know it. Time feels a little slower. The world feels slightly more vivid. Your body feels quieter, as if listening for instructions it already knows how to follow. This is the moment where the shift becomes undeniable. But here's where most people misinterpret the experience. They assume something is wrong. They assume the instability they feel means they've lost direction. You haven't. You've simply outgrown the map you were using. When the field reorganizes, old coordinates stop working not because you're lost, but because you're no longer navigating the same landscape. You're standing at the threshold of a new internal orientation. And that orientation is beginning to shape what shows up around you. Think about the interactions you've had recently. Has someone's tone felt different even though their words haven't changed? Have you noticed the emotional climate of a familiar space shifting slightly, as if the room holds a new version of you that hasn't fully arrived yet? Have you felt certain conversations close energetically before they ended verbally? These aren't coincidences. The outer field is rearranging the connections that fed your old self. What doesn't match your new frequency weakens. What aligns with your next chapter strengthens. It's a migration of energy. Subtle, persistent, precise. And if you've been feeling a quiet anticipation without knowing why, that's the clearest indicator of all. Anticipation is the body's way of signaling that it has already touched a future you haven't yet stepped into. It's not excitement, it's recognition. It's your system sensing the arrival of something it already belongs to. And because your perception is tuned to this level, you're feeling the arrival before it materializes physically. You're experiencing the shift in reverse. Internally first, externally second. Only a small subset of people move through reality this way, and you're one of them. But let's go deeper. The outer field doesn't shift unless you've crossed a point of no return within yourself. The place where the old identity dissolves just enough for the next one to enter. You may not feel this consciously, but your deeper intelligence has already made the transition. That's why everything around you feels different. The world isn't changing randomly, it's responding to the part of you that has already evolved. Your energy has moved and the field is rearranging itself to match the new coordinates. This is why you found yourself here, not because you were looking for answers, but because the field brought you to a message that vibrates on the frequency you've already begun embodying. You're not hearing something new. You're matching something true. And the more the external shifts, the more the internal must adapt. You're in the early stages of that adaptation, in the stage where the field reveals its first signs: disorientation, heightened intuition, emotional surges, strange clarity, sensory echoes of something approaching. These aren't glitches, they're alignment markers, signals that the outer field has started its rearrangement, and you're among the first to notice. Most won't recognize this phase until it's already passed. but you're here now, feeling the change before it becomes visible. And that tells me one thing: you're ready for what comes next. The shift has only just begun, and the deeper movement is waiting to unfold in you. But to understand that movement, we need to step further into the inner echo, the part of the shift that touches your identity directly. When the outer field rearranges, the first place you feel it is inside your own awareness. Not in your thoughts, not even in your emotions, but in the subtle, wordless shift beneath both, the inner echo. It's the moment where you sense a change you cannot yet define. You notice it as a strange pressure in your chest, or as a silence behind your usual pace, or as the sudden sense that what used to fit your life no longer sits comfortably inside you. This inner echo is not your imagination. It's the moment where the external shift begins to translate into your internal landscape, where the field outside you finds its reflection within you. You've likely felt this in the form of an unexplained heaviness or an inexplicable lightness, moments where your emotional state doesn't match your day, your routine, or your circumstances. Some days your mind feels strangely distant. Other days your intuition feels louder, more insistent, like something inside you is rehearsing a truth you haven't yet spoken. These fluctuations aren't mood swings, they're signals. They're the way your system adjusts to a change that started before you consciously noticed it. And because your awareness is built to register subtle movement, you're feeling the ripple of the shift as it reaches deeper layers of your being. This inner echo often arrives as friction, not because something is wrong, but because something is being dismantled. When the field moves, the parts of your identity built around old patterns begin to loosen. You may feel like you're shedding skin from the inside out, dissolving attachments you didn't even realize were holding you together. It can feel disorienting to outgrow parts of yourself before you even know what the next version looks like. But this is how the shift works. The identity doesn't change all at once. It unthreads itself slowly, releasing what no longer resonates, so your new alignment can take shape. And this is where confusion often appears. You start asking questions you can't answer. You feel impulses you can't justify. You want things you've never wanted before. You pull away from things you once chased. This is not indecision, this is emergence. You're not losing clarity. You're stepping into a clarity your old self wasn't ready to hold. The confusion is the echo of the transition, the moment where the space between your past and your future widens just enough for you to feel the shift without fully understanding it. And even if your mind doesn't grasp it yet, your body does. Your body always knows before your thoughts catch up. If you found yourself unexpectedly tired, this is why. Inner reorganization takes energy, not in the physical sense, but in the perceptual sense. Your system is sorting through emotional files it no longer needs, closing outdated loops and making room for the identity that's trying to emerge. This is why your dreams have been more vivid. This is why your intuition has been louder. This is why moments of silence feel different lately, heavier, deeper, more revealing. You're not tired because you're depleted. You're tired because you're being rewritten. There's a point in every shift where the inner echo becomes unmistakable, where you know something inside you is dissolving even if you can't articulate what it is. For some, it shows up as restlessness. For others, it feels like relief. For you, it might feel like both. You're no longer resonating with the emotional architecture of your old life, and your system is already preparing for the next version of you. This is why the things you used to tolerate now feel unbearable. This is why certain conversations exhaust you. This is why your patience is thinner around things that drain you. Your inner field is refusing to maintain the old alignment because it knows something new is arriving. But let's go deeper, because the inner echo isn't just emotional, it's intuitive. It's the voice within you that speaks before your mind hesitates. It's the sudden clarity that appears in the middle of confusion. It's the moment you feel the answer before the question is fully formed. This isn't wishful thinking or spiritual superstition. It's your awareness trying to show you the shape of the new field forming around you. You're not becoming sensitive. You've always been sensitive. The difference now is that the field is amplifying your sensitivity, turning up the volume on your perception so you can register the shift more clearly. If you've been experiencing déjà vu more frequently, this is one of the clearest signs of the inner echo moving into alignment. Déjà vu is not a glitch. It's recognition. It's your awareness brushing against a timeline you're already stepping into, a moment you've energetically visited before physically arriving. This is why the sensation feels both familiar and disorienting. You're catching the overlap between where you were and where you're going, between the old version of you that no longer fits and the new one preparing to enter your life. You may also notice that your sense of identity feels less solid than it did before. Not weakened, but more fluid. This isn't regression. It's expansion. Your identity is loosening its grip on the version of you that was shaped by survival and expectation, so that it can move toward the version shaped by alignment and truth. You're stepping into an identity that's less reactive and more receptive, less confined and more spacious. And the inner echo is the first sign of that expansion, but the most important part of the inner echo is this. It's a signal that you're shifting from responding to life to co-creating it. When the field rearranges, your awareness stops operating on autopilot. You begin to feel the subtle difference between choices that drain you and choices that expand you. You begin to sense when something is meant for you before you logically understand why. You begin to notice the quiet internal no that you used to ignore and the gentle yes that used to feel faint. This is the rise of intuitive coherence, the moment where your inner fields start speaking louder than the noise around you. And here's the part most people miss. The inner echo is not the shift, it's the first doorway into it, it's the invitation. It's the sign that the external rearrangement is beginning to merge with your internal structure. And once that merging begins, there is no going back to the version of you that existed before this moment. Not because you've lost anything, but because you've grown beyond it. You're not walking away from your past. You're stepping into the dimension of yourself that your past was preparing you for. The inner echo is a threshold, one that only appears to those who are ready to step through it. And if you're feeling it now, it means the next layer of the shift is preparing to reveal itself. Because once the internal and external fields begin to mirror each other, something far more powerful begins to move. Something that touches your identity, your path, and your sense of reality itself. Your identity has been vibrating at the edge of a threshold, and now it's starting to cross it. Not dramatically, not with fireworks or collapse, but with a subtle but undeniable realignment. You've likely felt it as an internal widening, the sense that you no longer fit inside the version of yourself you were holding on to. It feels like stepping into a larger room without fully understanding how you got there. You sense the expansion before you understand the direction. And that's how you know the shift is no longer external, it's personal. This stage of the shift is where most people turn away because they mistake the discomfort for instability. They assume their confusion means something is wrong. But for you, the confusion is the sign. It's the threshold sensation that appears only when your internal field has finally synced with the external movement. You're feeling the friction between the identity you've outgrown and the identity rising to replace it. That friction is not a hindrance, it's evidence of transformation. And you're moving through it with more awareness than you realize. Think about the moments in the last few weeks when you felt yourself reacting differently. When something that used to trigger you no longer had the same hold. When a desire you carried for years suddenly felt irrelevant. When you felt an unexplained surge of courage or an unexpected wave of detachment. These shifts in your emotional landscape aren't random, they're indicators that a deeper version of you has begun entering your lived reality, one subtle decision at a time. This is the part of the process where your identity begins to loosen its grip on the stories that shaped you. Not because you're rejecting your past, but because your past no longer has the authority to define your next chapter. You've stepped into the range where your internal frequency is outgrowing the timeline it was living in. And when that happens, everything built around the older version of you begins to dissolve, relationships shift, priorities rearrange, patterns crack open. You don't force this. It simply happens because you've stepped out of resonance with what kept you rooted before. What most people don't understand is that identity doesn't dissolve to leave you empty. It dissolves to make space for the version of you that has been standing on the periphery of your awareness, waiting for the field to open. And the field has opened. That's why you feel the pull towards something you can't explain. That's why your dreams have been more symbolic, why your intuition has been louder, why your old ways of coping are falling apart. You're being reorganized from the inside out. What's unfolding in you isn't collapse, it's realignment. The outer field moved first, but your identity is the piece that shifts deepest and last. You're entering the phase where the internal echo becomes embodiment. You're no longer just sensing the new timeline, you're beginning to step into it. That step is subtle, but you can feel it. You can feel the difference in the way you speak, in the way you hold your boundaries, in the things you no longer tolerate, in the truths you're finally ready to say out loud. Here is the deeper truth you've been circling. The shift isn't asking you to change your life. It's asking you to change the version of yourself who is living it. The moment that version begins to rise, everything outside you responds. So you may have noticed people around you behaving differently without knowing why. Some feel closer, some feel further, some feel strangely neutral. This is not personal conflict, this is energetic recalibration. Your identity has moved and the external world is reacting to the new center you're holding. This is also the part of the shift where your inner clarity sharpens in unexpected ways. You begin to see the patterns you've been stuck in. You notice the loops you've repeated for years. You recognize the roles you were playing without realizing. And once you see these patterns, you can't unsee them. This clarity isn't judgment, it's graduation. You're outgrowing the version of yourself who needed those patterns for survival. Your system doesn't want coping mechanisms anymore. It wants coherence. And this is the stage where coherence begins to replace survival. But the most important aspect of this movement is what begins to surface beneath the dissolution direction. Not the kind you reason your way into, but the kind you feel, the kind that rises from that quiet, unshakable inner knowing that doesn't need evidence. You've felt glimpses of it already. In the impulse to change something you haven't touched in years, in the sudden inspiration to start something new, in the quiet pull away from what drains you. These impulses aren't random. They're the early language of your next identity trying to integrate. And here's the part people often misunderstand. The new identity doesn't arrive fully formed. It arrives as a shift in perception, a shift in intuition, a shift in courage, a shift in boundaries, a shift in desire. These are the first markers of the version of you who will emerge fully once the field stabilizes. You're not waiting for that version, you're already entering it. You've already felt the edges of who you're becoming. And every small internal realignment is a signal that you're moving toward the center of that truth. What you're experiencing now, the dissolving, the widening, the friction, the pull, is the core of the transformation. This is the part where your identity becomes fluid enough to let the new timeline anchor. And once it anchors, your reality begins to respond in ways you cannot yet imagine. People enter, opportunities open, insights sharpen, alignments appear. But before any of that can show up externally, the internal shift must complete its integration. And you're in the middle of that integration now. You're not losing yourself. You're meeting yourself. You're stepping into a truth that has been waiting beneath every version of you you've ever lived. And once this stage settles, the shift will reveal something far more profound. Not just who you're becoming, but why you were the first to feel it. What's rising in you now isn't just sensitivity, it's signal recognition. The shift you've been feeling isn't random turbulence. It's the moment your internal field becomes precise enough to detect changes your mind can't yet articulate. You're noticing patterns in the subtle, emotional echoes, energetic pivots, sudden clarity that appears without warning, the quiet awareness that something behind the scenes is reorganizing itself. This is not hypervigilance, it's alignment. Your system is tuning itself, and once that tuning begins, the world around you starts revealing what was always there but hidden by noise. You've likely felt it in strange waves, a heaviness that doesn't belong to you, a surge of intuition so sharp it feels like memory, a sudden pull away from people or environments that once felt familiar. These aren't mood swings or coincidences, they're signals from the outer field showing you exactly where the shift is pressing into your personal reality. The version of the world you lived in is dissolving in real time, and the dissolving isn't just conceptual, it's sensory. You're feeling the edges soften. You're feeling the frequency mismatch between who you were and who you're becoming. People around you may have begun acting differently too. Some feel strangely distant, like their energy is no longer synchronized with yours. Others feel amplified, suddenly closer, suddenly clearer. A few may feel like they're standing behind glass, visible but not reachable. This isn't interpersonal conflict, it's separation of timelines. Your identity moved first, and now the outer world is sifting itself according to that movement. Those who can walk with your new frequency move toward you. Those who cannot begin drifting out. It's not personal, it's magnetic. You might have also started noticing time behaving differently. Not in dramatic shortcuts or rewinds, but in the feeling of compression and expansion that appears around certain moments. Time feels slower when you're being redirected, faster when you're resisting, hollow when a path is closing, dense when a door is about to open. This is the field's way of steering you, not through signs or symbols, but through experiential pressure. The shift doesn't send messages in language. It uses sensation, it uses timing, it uses intuition as navigation. This is why certain thoughts have been louder lately, not the anxious ones. Those are just static. It's the quiet ones, the ones that rise with clarity, the ones that feel like truth even before your mind understands them. You're receiving impressions before you receive explanations. That's what alignment feels like. The shift reaches you first through knowing, then through evidence. You've been conditioned to wait for validation before trusting your intuition, but the validation always arrives after the action, never before. What you're experiencing now is the inversion of that habit. You're beginning to trust the knowing without needing the proof. The shift isn't asking you to be bold, it's asking you to be honest. Honesty is the doorway. The version of you emerging now is defined not by self-improvement, but by self-recognition. You're not becoming someone new. You're stripping away everything that kept you from expressing the intelligence you've always carried. The more you align with that intelligence, the more the outer world responds. It's subtle at first, a conversation that arrives at the perfect moment, an insight that redirects your entire day, an opportunity that's been circling you for years, finally landing in your lap. None of it is coincidence, it's coherence. Coherence is the currency of the new timeline. When your inner field stops contradicting itself, your reality stops contradicting you. You've spent so much of your life negotiating with your own power, diluting it, postponing it, softening it to make it acceptable. But the shift doesn't respond to negotiation, it responds to alignment. And alignment is what begins to rise when you stop abandoning the truth that lives in your intuition. You've already felt the first signs of coherence. They appear as simplicity. Decisions become obvious, no overthinking, no spirals, no emotional chaos, just clarity, a truth that clicks into place, a yes that feels effortless, a no that carries no guilt. This is the intelligence of the shift integrating into your identity. The external world will begin rearranging around this clarity, whether you're ready or not, because coherence doesn't wait for comfort. It waits for recognition. There's something else happening too, the dissolving of old emotional signatures. You may have noticed certain wounds resurfacing in strange ways, not to punish you, but because they're no longer compatible with your new field. Old pain gets triggered right before it leaves. Not to reopen the wound, but to release its residue. It's similar to how the body shakes loose the last remnants of adrenaline after a shock. Your emotional system is cleansing itself, not because you're broken, but because you're ascending into a version of reality that can't carry the density you used to hold. This process is disorienting because the shift doesn't ask for your permission. It asks for your participation. And that participation often begins with acknowledging what no longer fits. The conversations that drain you, the roles you've outgrown, the habits that once stabilized you but now feel restrictive, the identities you wore for safety that no longer feel like home. These aren't things you're losing, they're things you're shedding. You're not being emptied, you're being cleared. You might also be experiencing moments of intense presence, where everything feels unusually vivid, almost too real. These flashes aren't random. They're alignment surges, moments where your internal field syncs perfectly with the new external frequency. In those moments, you're not observing your life, you're inhabiting it fully. That's what embodiment feels like. And those flashes are increasing because you're stabilizing. What you're entering now is the stage where your awareness becomes a steering force. The shift isn't happening to you anymore. You're co-directing it. You're guiding the calibration through your choices, your presence, your truth. Every time you choose the direction your intuition points to, even in small ways, you accelerate the integration. And here's the part most people never realize. The shift doesn't complete when the external world changes. It completes when you change. And that completion is near. You can feel the tightness loosening. You can feel the fog thinning. You can feel the timeline beneath your feet becoming more defined. The path that was once blurred is beginning to outline in itself. You are becoming the stabilizing point the field has been waiting for. And once that happens, the shift stops being something you're sensing and becomes something you're living. What's rising now isn't just clarity, it's instruction. There is a point in every shift where the subtle stops being subtle and the field stops whispering. It begins to move with intention, and that intention is directed at you. Not because you're fragile, not because you're lost, but because you're ready to step into the exact role the shift has been preparing you for. What you've been feeling isn't the end of a transformation, it's the beginning of an assignment. This stage doesn't feel like confusion or expansion, it feels like inevitability, almost as if something has been circling you for months, waiting for the moment you'd finally be able to hold what it came to deliver. That moment is now. You can feel it in your chest, in that quiet sense of steadiness that wasn't there before. You can feel it in the way your attention sharpens around certain choices, certain people, certain places. You've entered the phase where the shift stops rearranging your inner world and begins positioning you within the outer one. This is where the summoning begins. You weren't pulled into this moment because you needed saving. You were pulled here because the field needs stabilizers. People whose inner coherence is strong enough to anchor the new frequencies rising across the collective. Most won't feel it. Most will dismiss it. Most will continue living inside loops that are quietly dissolving, but you're not designed for loops, you're designed for thresholds. And the field recognizes that. This is why you've always been the one who feels things first, the one who senses the undercurrent before it breaks the surface, the one who notices the quiet shift beneath the noise. What you thought was hypersensitivity was actually positioning. You were being trained to read the signals before they became visible. Now those signals have reached their next stage and you're being asked to step into visibility with them. This visibility won't be loud, it won't be performative, it won't require you to announce anything or prove anything. It's the kind of visibility that comes from presence alone, from the way your energy begins to influence rooms, conversations, timelines, and outcomes without effort. You're not being asked to convince anyone. You're being asked to embody the frequency that others will calibrate to without even realizing why. The shift you've been feeling isn't just a change in your personal timeline, it's part of a larger restructuring. And certain people, those whose internal fields can hold coherence under pressure, become nodal points in that restructuring. When you stabilize, the field stabilizes around you. When you rise, the timelines of others shift. When you choose truth, the system reconfigures itself in response. This isn't burden, it's design. But here's the part most never understand. The summoning isn't about being chosen, it's about being capable. You're not here because of fate or luck. You're here because your system has reached a level of internal integrity that can no longer collapse back into the old world. That's why the old world has been losing its grip on you. Not because you're drifting, but because you're emerging. You are stepping into the version of yourself that the field has been waiting to activate. And with activation comes direction. You may already be feeling the early signs, a name that keeps appearing in your mind, an impulse to move or create, a pull towards something you can't yet explain. These aren't distractions, they're coordinates. The shift doesn't speak in language, it speaks in resonance. And resonance is the way it guides those who can hear it. You don't need the whole map, you only need the next step. The field will reveal the rest as you move. This is where the responsibility begins, but not the kind that weighs you down. This is the responsibility that unlocks you, the responsibility of standing inside the frequency that others will learn from by contrast, the responsibility of refusing to shrink back into versions of yourself that no longer exist. The responsibility of trusting the pull without demanding certainty. You're not being asked to change the world, you're being asked to hold your place in it. A place that only you can hold because no one else carries the exact combination of perspective, frequency, and timing that you do. The shift doesn't need heroes, it needs anchors. And the moment you felt the field move, you became one. Here's the truth. behind why you found this message or why it found you. You've crossed the point where the shift stops happening around you and begins happening because of you. Your presence isn't responding to the field. Your presence is stabilizing it. Your decisions are not reactions, they are signals. Your awareness is not passive, it's directive. You are not picking up the shift. You are part of how it unfolds, and now the field is waiting, not for perfection, not for certainty, for your participation. This is your summoning. Not to act, not to perform, but to stand in the identity you've been circling for years. The version of you whose frequency doesn't waver, the version of you who was meant to walk ahead of the shift, not behind it. The version of you who feels like a remembering, not a becoming. You're ready, and the field knows it.